Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of my survival series, and I apologise for it taking so long to get this one out, but I'd been really busy. I did promise times maybe last week that I'd create the video, but as I say, I apologise for the delay, and hopefully I'll get back on track from now on. But so this is what we're going to focus on today. I know a lot of people have been asking about the tree chopping, but that is going to come next time because I'm going to need to still work on the arms and the animations and stuff, and I just haven't had a great deal of time to work on those things. So the thing I'm going to show today in the meantime is I'm going to show the more advanced player GUI. So I had a GUI survival tutorial a while back which showed numbers going down, but as you might have seen in my original video, or my update video, that I've got the GUI which you'll see in the corner with the coloured bars that will go down. So we're going to learn how to do that today. So once we've learned to do that, then we'll be able to link other things in, because I can't just stick tutorials randomly in the middle, because a lot of tutorials link in with each other. So if we need to chop down tree, we'll have to use stamina, and without the player GUI stamina, we can't link those together. We could obviously do it after, but it's just easier if I've got this in the meantime, and then you can try and experiment with things yourself. So, as I said to everybody last time, the island design was just a basic sort of layout, and I said I'd retweak it and things. So really, I've not really done anything crazy. I've just added the water, sort of edged out the terrain with the beach, and then the little edging of the sort of water effect on the sand, and then added the forest, and then added a few image effects. So really, we're not focusing on the island today. We're going to be focusing on the actual GUI elements, but you can see, you know, we get a sort of visual look of a jungle-ish island, and then I'll be showing you how to cut down the palm trees. So, right, first of all, I'll get straight into it because I've spent a bit too long talking about it. And if you didn't want to skip this, I'll put a little thing in the description to skip on. So right, we're going to start off making the script today. What we're going to do is we're going to start by writing a new JavaScript. And then we're going to call this player GUI. But actually, whilst we're on the subject of the GUI, we're going to actually have to create a set of GUI objects if you want the bars to change colour. So what I've done in Photoshop is I've created a series of GUI objects. Obviously you can change these colours to however you want, but all I've done is, if I go to the canvas size, I've done a 240 width by a 40 height canvas, and then I've just added a colour, or put a square in, or paint bucketed the colour in, and then we'll save each of these out as whatever colour. So I've got an empty, so the white is going to be for when it's empty, and red's going to be for health, yellow's going to be for hunger, and just save those out as PSD, Targa, PNG, whatever file format that you want. And then what we're going to do is I'll show you that I've got an empty image, I've got health, I've got hunger, I've got stamina, and I've got thirst, and they're all down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up Player GUI, because you know you can create these, and I'll put all the GUI objects in a little pack when I upload them to my website. So I'll start off by zooming in so we can see a bit more what's going on. And then what we'll do is we'll start by writing the script. I'm going to add some comments to this script because it's going to be fairly long. So we're going to set this as size of the textures. So what we're going to do is we're going to say variable size as type vector2 equals new vector2 open brackets 240 by 40, and what that means is that's the actual size of our textures that we're using. And then we're going to set a section for health variables, and what we're going to do is write variable health position as type vector2 equals new vector2 open brackets 20 comma 20, close that up, put a semicolon. Then we come and put variable health bar display again as type float equal to 1, and we'll have another variable called health bar empty, and have that as type texture 2D with a semicolon. Then one last variable for the health is health bar full as type texture 2D. So we're going to set these all for the health, the thirst, the hunger and the stamina. So what we'll do under here is we'll copy that whole section, paste that in, and we're going to then call this the hunger variables. So what I'll change this is I'll change this to hunger position, because we're going to change all these names to keep them constant. So I'll just copy hunger there, and then I'll hunger bar display, hunger bar empty, hunger bar full, and we'll keep the texture to 2Ds the same and the float to 1, but then we'll change this to 60. So it's going to be, the position is going to be 20 along, 20 down for the health, and 20 along, 60 down for the hunger, so we can fit it all in nicely. And again, what I'll do is I'll copy those variables, paste that in, and we're going to then change this for the thirst. And as I say, like before, we'll just write a new one. So we'll call this thirst position, and I'll just copy thirst and I'll just paste them in over the top like so. And then what I'll do is we'll set this to 120,100, and then again we'll set this so it's then the last one for stamina variables. So then we'll create stamina position, then stamina bar display, stamina bar empty and stamina bar full, and then we'll just change this to 140. We'll save this out now. Right, so once we've got all those in place, then what we're going to do is we're going to have another comment saying fall rate, and then we're going to actually add some variables so we can actually set how quickly your health or your thirst or your hunger is going to fall over time. So health fall rate as type integer equal to 150, variable hunger fall rate as type integer equal to 150, variable thirst fall rate as type integer equal to 100, and variable stamina fall rate as integer equal to 35. And these are just some values that I've set up, and you can test this. So realistically, the higher the number in here, the slower it will actually fall. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to set a few variables to control when we're going to be able to jump and when we're going to be able to actually do some things. So what I'm going to do is write a private variable and call this ch motor as type character motor, make sure you spell that right, and then another private variable called controller and have that as character controller. This is just so that we'll be able to sprint and do different things once we're in the game. Then we're going to write variable can jump as type boolean equal to false, and then variable jump timer as type float equal to 0.7. Now this might be confusing so far, but I'll go through it as we're going along. So we're going to have to be able to jump and use up stamina, and we're going to have a timer so we can't jump over and over and waste a lot of stamina. We'll only be able to jump every so often, and obviously we're going to control the variables accordingly. And obviously it might be confusing, but we'll go through and we'll learn each bit as we go along. So in the function start, what we're going to do is add the function start and add the 2 curly brackets below, and we're going to, as I do with many scripts, we're going to reference a component that is actually on the object that we're going to add this to. So we'll add this to the first person controller. So ch motor equals get component in brackets character motor, because the character motor is the thing that drives the character along. And then we're going to set controller equal to get component, open brackets, character, controller, and then we'll close that up, save it, and that's going to be controlling the rigid body and the sort of things that we're going to need to do. This is going to be, as I said, similar to the other tutorial that I did, but we're going to create a lot of elements on the GUI. So we'll say function on GUI, 2 brackets, then 2 curly brackets below. And then we're going to start by writing GUI dot begin group, open brackets, new rect, open brackets, health position dot x, comma, health position dot y, comma, size dot x, comma, size dot y. Close that up, add a semicolon. Then we'll say GUI dot box, open brackets, rect, open brackets again, 0, comma, 0, comma, size dot x, comma, size dot y. Close that up, add a comma, and then we'll say health bar empty. Close that up, add a semicolon. So what we're doing here to create this is we're creating an actual GUI group. So a group is just when you group it, you can group as many boxes as you want inside a group as you want, and it helps you hold your GUIs together. So I'll give you an example. If we go to the first person controller now, I'm going to add the player GUI. You will notice that we have a box here, which is just at the top, and then we're going to be able to have many groups of things inside one box, so it encapsulates it all. So what we're going to do below here is obviously what we're going to do is create another GUI dot begin group, and then we're going to create, similarly with this line here, what we're going to do is we're going to paste this in. So we'll delete whatever's in the brackets. We'll do 0, comma, 0, size dot x, times by health bar display. Then we'll say comma, size dot y, and have the 2 brackets closed and the semicolon. And then under there we'll say GUI dot box, open brackets, 0, comma, 0, comma, size dot x, comma, size dot y. Close that up, add a comma, and then health bar full. Close that up and add a semicolon. And then what we're going to do below here to close off the GUI group, we're going to say GUI dot end group, and then 2 brackets and a semicolon. Then again GUI dot end group, close the brackets and a semicolon, and that's going to close those 2 groups up. So that's just for health. So what we're going to then do is we'll copy the whole section of statement, then we'll paste it in below, and then we'll just write a little note saying health GUI, and then a little note below here saying hunger GUI. And then what we're going to do, like we did before, is we're just going to take the name that we had at the top, and what we're going to do is we're just going to literally change all these healths to hunger. So everything that says health, we're going to change to hunger. So that's done for the second section. So then we've got the actual hunger bar that'll move up or down accordingly to whatever the value is. Then again, what we'll do is we'll copy the whole statement, paste it in, and then what we'll do is we're going to write for the thirst GUI. So I'll go back up. So we've done health, hunger, and now I'll copy thirst. And what we'll do is we'll paste that in. So thirst position, thirst bar empty, thirst bar full, and thirst bar display. And we'll save that. And then we'll have one more, which is going to be for our stamina. We'll paste that in, knock that across, and we'll change this to stamina GUI. And then I'll go back up and we'll copy stamina, go back down, and I will change this to stamina position, stamina position, stamina bar empty, stamina bar display, and stamina bar full. And we'll save that so it ends the group. So all it is doing is we're going to create an initial group, and then we're going to have a GUI box within that group. Then we're going to have another group which is then go over the top of what we already had, because it'll be in the same position, and it'll just move up or down, displaying the actual size of it going across in whatever time we've set. But one thing I did forget to add it here in the GUI box is open a bracket and make that for rectangle, and we'll copy this in and we'll paste this in front of each of these, and then we'll save that out. And then where we go, we have the 4 boxes ready to add the images at this side. So now we're actually going to control the rate at which the health and things fall, because it doesn't do anything at the moment, it just holds the actual objects until we tell it what to do. So we're going to start by writing function update, add 2 brackets, then 2 curly brackets below, and then we'll add a little section and call this the health control section. Then we'll say that if hunger bar display is less than or equal to 0, and thirst bar display is less than or equal to 0, we'll close 2 brackets, add 2 curly brackets below, and we'll say that health bar display minus equals time dot delta time divided by the health fall rate times by 2. And then underneath the 2 curly brackets we'll say else, and then add 2 curly brackets below there, and we'll say that if open brackets hunger bar display is less than or equal to 0, and then what we need to do is we need to add 2 lines, and for me these 2 lines are located next to my shift and the Z key, and it just means either or. So if it's this, or if it's that, or if thirst bar display is less than or equal to 0, close the bracket and add 2 curly brackets below and say health bar display minus equals time dot delta time divided by health fall rate. So which this means is that if health bar display, so if your health or if your thirst is at 0, we're going to actually make the health fall quicker, so at health rate, and times it by 2 to make it quicker. But if the hunger or the thirst are at 0, so if one of them isn't, we're going to just fall by a slower rate. You can obviously change the values up at the top for the thirst fall rate. Then what we're going to do under this statement, here, we'll say that if health bar display is less than or equal to 0, we'll add the bracket, add the 2 curly brackets below. We'll say that character def, 2 brackets and a curly bracket, and that'll call a new function, so we can actually make it so the player will be able to die, and that pretty much controls that section. So then under your if statement we'll move to the hunger control section. Then we'll say that if hunger bar display is greater than or equal to 0, and then we'll say that hunger bar display minus equals time dot delta time / hunger fall rate with a semicolon. So that just means if we're at below 0, so if we've still got some hunger bar left, we'll just keep dropping it by time dot delta time divided by the hunger fall rate. And as I say, you can obviously change all of these values. And then we need to make sure that we can never go below 0 and mess anything up. So we'll say that if hunger bar display is ever less than or equal to 0, what we're going to do is we're going to set hunger bar display to 0, and then we're also going to obviously do the opposite way. So if hunger bar display is ever then greater than equal to 1, and 1 being the maximum that we can have, hunger bar display is actually equal to 1, so it can never go any higher. And obviously that are due to be the case if we ate too much food, then we would never want it to go higher than what we've originally set. And now we'll move on to the thirst control section. And the thirst control section is going to be exactly the same as the hunger, so what we'll do is we'll copy that and we'll paste it in. And what we'll do here is we'll change this to thirst bar display is ever greater than or equal to 0. We'll make sure that thirst bar display is minus equal to time.delta time divided by thirst fall rate, and then the thirst bar display, if it's ever less than it, it's always equal to it, and if thirst is ever greater than or equal to 1, it's always equal to 1. So we're making sure that thirst and hunger, because they're going to be the ones that move the most for the survival system, we're going to make sure they're controlled for the most part. Now we're going to move on to the more complicated section, but we're not far off finishing with the script. We'll actually write down that this is the stamina control section. And what we're going to do is we're going to say if controller dot velocity, and make sure this is lowercase controller, dot velocity dot magnitude is greater than 0, and input dot get key down, if get key brackets key code dot left shift close 2 brackets, add 2 curly brackets below, and we'll say ch motor dot movement dot max forward speed is equal to 10, then ch motor dot movement dot max sideways speed is equal to 10, and then we'll say stamina bar display minus equals time dot delta time divided by stamina fall rate, close that up, controller dot velocity dot magnitude. Right, so what this means is that if we're actually moving, if our magnitude of the controller is actually greater than 0, and we're pressing left shift, so left shift is for sprinting. So if we're sprinting, we're going to increase the movement speed to 10, and what it might already be, I think it's 6. And then when we're sprinting, we're going to count down by whatever rate that we want to count down by, so we're using up stamina. So then what we're going to want to do is write else for that statement, and say what we'll do is we'll copy all of this, paste it in, and then we'll change it so if we're not moving and we're not sprinting, then we'll count up by the same amount. So we'll say plus equals time.delta time divided by the stamina fall rate. So that's just controlling sprinting, and that's going to cause our stealth and our stamina to move up and down depending if we're sprinting or not. And then here we'll add a bit for the jumping section, so when we jump we want to use up some stamina. So what we'll start off by saying is that if input dot get key down, open brackets, keycode dot space, close that up, say and can jump is equal to true. Then under here what we'll say is that stamina bar display minus equals 0.2, so it's going to use up 0.2 of the stamina bar to jump. Then we're going to call a function called wait, and then what we're going to do below here is we're also going to say that if can jump is equal to false. Close that up, add 2 curly brackets below there, and then we'll say jump timer minus equals time dot delta time, add a semicolon. Then we'll say ch motor dot jumping dot enabled equals false. And also we'll say below that if jump timer is less than or equal to 0, then we'll actually say can jump is equal to true. Ch motor dot jumping dot enabled equals true. Then we'll say jump timer is equal to 0.7, and then we'll also control that when we actually, if we don't have enough stamina or the 0.2 of the stamina left to jump, we'll make sure that we can't. So if stamina bar display is less than or equal to 0.2, close that up, add 2 curly brackets, we'll say can jump equals false, and then we'll say ch motor dot jumping dot enabled equals false. So what this all means is that if we've pressed space and we can jump, we'll actually take away a portion of time, a portion of stamina, and then we'll call another function, and this helps us just get around a little dodgy error that we get, but I'll show you that in a minute. And then if can jump is equal to false, so if we can't jump anymore, we'll set the timer to start going, and we'll make sure that we can't jump. If the timer ever equals 0, which means that we can jump again, we'll set can jump to true, and then we'll make sure that we can jump again and reset the timer to 0.7. And then if the stamina bar display is ever less than or equal to 0.2, which is the jumping amount that we can use, we'll make sure that we can't jump again. And also, like I did before with the hunger and thirst, if we ever go below 0 or above 1, we don't want to be able to, so it won't affect anything. So we'll say stamina bar display is ever greater than equal to 1. Then we'll say stamina bar display is equal to 1. And also we'll say if stamina bar display is less than or equal to 0, close that up, add 2 curly brackets, then we'll say stamina bar display is equal to 0. And we'll also make sure that we set the character motor so we've got normal speed, so we can't manage to sprint anymore if it's equal to that much. And then before I tell you that we'd make a new function for character death, so we'll write function character death with 2 brackets, then 2 curly brackets below. Then we'll write application.load level, open brackets, name this whatever you want, simple level, with a semicolon, and then function wait, like we needed to add, so I said we get away from a silly bug. Then we'll say yield wait for seconds, and then in brackets 0.1. Then we'll say can jump is equal to false. So what that means is we're just going to wait 0.1 of a second, which you wouldn't even notice, and then we'll make sure that we can't jump. So I'll go through the entirety of this script again, just to quickly go through it. I know it's been a fairly long tutorial, but it's hard to explain a script that's fairly long. So what we're going to do, we've set the size of the GUI objects that we've made, we've set the position, we've set the display amount, and we've set 2 objects for each different element that we're going to use. Then we've just referenced the controllers that we're going to need to affect for sprinting and jumping, and then we're going to make sure that we have a boolean and a counter for jumping. Then on the GUI, to display the different elements on the GUI, so for the health, the hunger, the thirst, we set a group and we set a box in this group. So we set it the position and the health that we already had, along with the sizes that we already set at the top, and then we make sure we create a box at the same size, and then we can add the health or the GUI object that we want to add. And again, for the second part, we do the same thing, but we times the position by the health bar display. So that's the number that we can affect, that I say that can only go as high as 1 or as low as 0. And then we don't change the Y position, it always stays the same, but we'll change the X position so it looks like the bar moves away or forward depending which way you need, and it's the same for each. Then in the update, we control the health by if the health and the thirst are both 0, we'll count the health down faster, and then else if the health or hunger or the thirst are at 0, we'll count down at a set rate. Then we'll make sure that we can't let the health go below 0. If it does, we'll cause the character to die. In the hunger, if the hunger is ever above 0, which means that we have still got some hunger left, we'll always count down. If the hunger is below or greater than 1, we'll set them to the max amounts. Again, with thirst is exactly the same. Stamina, if we're actually moving and we press left shift, we'll be able to sprint, and it'll take away the stamina depending on what we've set at the top. Then if we're not pressing any of those, normal speed will be done, and we'll be able to count up the stamina, so we'll gain stamina again. Along with jumping, if we press space and we can jump, we'll be able to take a little bit off, and we'll have to wait. So we call this function, which waits a couple of seconds and says now we can't jump. So then the second part gets initiated. If we can't jump anymore, we'll start the timer for 0.7 of a second, and then we'll make sure that we can jump from the controller. And then if the timer ever equals 0, we'll make sure then we can jump. We've reset the timer and we enable jumping. Then what we're doing here is that if we're ever below an amount which is needed to jump, so we need a 0.2 amount to jump, we'll say we can't because we don't want to waste the stamina or go below a certain amount. Then we'll say that we make sure that stamina doesn't go higher or lower than 1 or 0, the maximum amounts, and we make sure that we set normal speed if it ever goes below 0. And then obviously in the character death, we'll say we can call a new level. So if we do die, you can add a check, load a death scene or whatever you want to add. One thing that I did make a mistake on is that needs to be lowercase ch motor. There and there. Save that. Now I'm back into Unity, go to my first person controller. Then what I'll do for my elements here is that I want to be able to add my GUI objects. So here we'll empty, so we'll add the empty image here. We'll add the health full there, empty image here, hunger full there, empty image here, thirst full there, stamina empty, and stamina bar full. So what this means is we can keep the white image the same because it never changes. So it only changes the other bars over the amount of time that we have. So you can see that the green is the thirst and it's counting down slightly quicker than the hunger. Obviously you can change these, and I'm walking around normally. If I hold shift, you'll notice that my stamina starts decreasing as I'm running about. Obviously I have to take away, you can see I don't sprint anymore. If I jump, you can see that it takes down a good portion of stamina. I can't jump over and over until the timer counts down. and if we ever get to a certain amount, I won't be able to jump again. While I remember, add a little section here, because if we set this here to 0.2, we'll never be able to jump again. So then we'll want to say that else can jump is equal to true, and ch motor dot jumping dot enabled equals true. So you saw the things to the objects tick down, and you make sure that you set the size to the size of your GUI objects. You can change the positions to the health, the hunger, the thirst. Keep the displays at 1. You can obviously change these fall rates, so if I put the thirst to a higher amount, say like 600 for instance, you'll notice that it probably will take a long time to ever disappear. So if I pull this back down to now 3, obviously because I went into minus figures, it doesn't know how to deal with it very well. So you can just change that accordingly. And I apologise for this being such a long tutorial, but with quite a long script, it's hard to bring it down to a short time. So as ever, I said that I'll be doing tree chopping next time, hopefully next week. But as ever, make sure you keep a lookout. Thanks very much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.